Hello, everybody. It's Max with Crypto Talk Now. In today's deep dive, we're going to jump into some research in regards to Realio, aka ticker symbol Rio. You may be wondering, what in the world is this and why, if anything, I'm putting so much emphasis on it? Well, I want to give a shout out to Papa X Mex, who happened to point this out in a DM. And when I went further into it, I said, wow, this is definitely now at the top of my queue for deep dive research. So if you're into these type of things, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So I'm going to go ahead and expand the screen. And I, of course, want to mention specifically a few key things that he mentioned. Papa Mex. Papa X Mex, technically. And he says huge, extremely low market cap, huge partnerships, stellar lumens, TZero. This one, in his opinion, is going to make some people very wealthy. Now, of course, just like you saw, got to remind people, this is not financial advice. Please do more of your own proper research. Don't just listen to a content creator like myself and so on. Of course, you got to do these types of things. And if anything, read the white paper, read a light paper if you're not into reading the whole thing. But you should owe it to yourself to, do those types of things. Now, in this, I want to show you specifically this first before we get into the nitty gritty of what this project is, what are the key things, key takeaways, right? So, the Realio platform, all right, describes itself as an end-to-end blockchain-based SaaS platform, all right? Now, before we get further into that, we need to first understand what in the world is SaaS. Well, this comes straight from Oracle. It says SaaS is software as a service. SaaS is a cloud-based software delivery model in which the cloud provider develops and maintains cloud application software, provides automatic software updates, and makes software available to its customers via the internet on a pay-as-you-go basis. That's the bottom line. All right, now that we established what that is, this is a platform for issuance, investment, and life cycle management of digital securities. Excuse me. And crypto assets. It aims to combine access to 100% on-chain decentralized peer-to-peer exchange with the features of an issuance/investment platform in order to merge enterprise-grade blockchain and cryptocurrency solutions with institutional quality investment vehicles. Now, the key takeaway here for now is this right here. Institutional quality investment vehicles. All right. Also, keep in mind, this is a microcap. We have gotten requests from the community. Max, can you please look into a microcap gem? All right. We'll get to that as well. Trust me. So here are some articles that you may be interested. If you don't happen to know how to read white paper, you can basically Google some of these particular things. But of course, on CMC has it as well. We'll just take a moment to get into this. As far as the price and so on. So it's slightly under 10 cents. It is an Ethereum project. I know some people are like, oh, great. Why did they build it on XTC? I get all that. All right. Currently ranked 1609. And then just real quick while we're here, as far as what markets you could get on, not many, right? Uniswap, V2 and the V3. There's OKX, which I've heard good things about OKX. That's not too bad. I would probably say that's, the biggest of those exchanges and so on. Tiny Man, never heard of it, to be honest. BitUBU, never heard of it. All right. So my route, unless I was going to get it from a centralized exchange, which I believe OKX is, yes. If I was going to go centralized exchange route, I probably would go with OKX. But let's face it, most of us probably would go the Uniswap route. Okay. All right. Let's take a look at the actual website. So Realio is what this project, of course, is referred to. Ticker symbol, again, is Rio, just like that sounds, like RIO, has nothing to do with Rio de Janeiro. It is the future of private equity, or I should say, the future of private equity is digital. It states, we are eliminating the barriers to invest in, trade, and leverage exclusive real estate, private equity, and other real world assets through decentralized finance. Now, if you follow us, for instance, on some other projects that we continuously cover here at CTN, such as LCX, right? They basically have done what, right? They are a quote unquote the blockchain bank, some people call it, right? They're a project and basically that tokenizes real world assets. How do we know that? One of the latest ones, right? With was it EUR7, right? The tokenized bonds, right? We've seen other things like this with XDC, right? You have yours, okay? So their trade sector, again, the tokenization, it's not the tokenization of anything and everything, but it's the key things, right? You can tokenize real world physical and digital assets. But in this case, how about like what you're seeing here with real world assets through DeFi, right? So it says, let's get started. Well, let's get further down into the actual site. So enabling exclusive access to institutional grade securities. That in itself, again, the keyword, institutional. That caught my attention. All right. So it states, investors seeking institutional grade opportunities that offer outstanding risk/return profiles often require tens of millions of dollars and an institutional grade network to gain access to these top tier investment vehicles. That, on the surface, if I was just looking at this, it really caught my attention. Our technology platform and the network provides access by sourcing exclusive opportunities while utilizing next-gen blockchain technology. Excuse me. Yes, next-gen blockchain technology to lift existing investment barriers and lower or outright eliminate fees. Well, we did mention the whole thing of this is built on Ethereum. If you could somehow work something out with that in itself, that would be big. I get it. It might just be their type of fees, not specifically gas fees with Ethereum. But again, some of these key things caught my attention. So we provide SEC compliance enabled technology to maximize liquidity through peer-to-peer transactions with a network of white-listed investors and liquidity pools. That sounds pretty good right there. No, I'm not a fan of the SEC, and if anything, I do think the SEC is corrupt. A lot of people do. And of course, holding XRP, are you kidding me? I'm being a fan of the SEC? Of course not. Case studies, joint ventures, and investments. Select joint ventures, clients, and pre-vetted investment opportunities to be available exclusively to members of the Realio network. 250 credited or credit fund tokenization and white label platform. Just listen to this for a second, because I'm not going to read everything on this verbatim. Valentis, which is one of the particular projects built on us, specializes in capturing value in uncertainty and prides itself in above 15 years of track record and discipline required to seize attractive market opportunities. Realio has formed a joint venture with Valentis Capital Management, VCM, to create Valentis digital and institutional portal for tokenized private equity vehicles offered by VCM. Of course, it talks about this whole thing on Fifth Avenue residential tower, NYC. All this stuff is very impressive, right? They have this thing, I will take a moment on this, liquidity mining fund, tokenized fund specializing in low-cost Bitcoin, for instance, production, right? Let's face it, when it comes to Bitcoin, it's a very high cost, right? If anything, the only real incentive for miners of why they mine is definitely not because of the electricity bills, right? It's because they have hopes that it will go way past the current price levels, 25,000, go up to, previous all-time high, 69,000, maybe 100,000. Again, that would simply make sense. But if you have something like you see here, the tokenized fund specializing in low-cost Bitcoin production through next-gen cooling technology, that itself is big. Because let's face it, whether it's HBAR, whether it's Algo, and so on, just because those are green blockchain projects, I get it, Hedera is technically not blockchain with Hashgraph, but just because those are pro-green doesn't mean that there's still a market for proof of work blockchains and so on. And obviously, Bitcoin is still there. If you have something that can be a nice production to create a cooling technology for an industry, let's face it, it's going to exist probably for the next 10 years or more, even though people are saying that, Bitcoin is outdated technology. I think there's still going to be a market for it, right? So there is that. So Liquidity Mining Fund, LMX, offers investors tokenized access to revenue from Bitcoin mining facilities specializing in next-generation cooling technology, producing Bitcoin at scale at a low cost. Now, all these things look great. And, if anything, I do want to kind of get more to the point here. I'm going to tell you guys flat out, there's a few key things that really stood out for me. Of course, I'm going to get to that. But what I was really impressed with was their partners and the infrastructure of Realio. Algorand. I mean, come on. Algorand is one I'm also personally invested in. I know here at CTN, we don't talk about Algorand as much as some of the other ISOs. We probably should. But we definitely cover Stellar quite a bit, right? And how about this, right? I was recently introduced to TZero. That's big in itself. And we're going to get into that Realio TZero connection. We talked about Changely with that particular Stellar connection in the past. But like it shows right here, you can join the exclusive community of investors. You simply create an account, complete KYC, fund wallet, invest if you choose to become an investor. But for the average person like myself, maybe you, the retail investor, what is the specific thing that we're looking for here? Well, for one, we want to see that the project's been around. It definitely has been around through, from at least 2020, even before that, if I'm not mistaken. Well, we can double check CMC. But you can see, back on September 17, 2020, Realio partners with $250 million Valentis fund to tokenize institutional grade investment opportunities. Realio launches tokenized funds specializing in, just like what we mentioned, low cost of Bitcoin production. Even if you're not into some of these things, realize it's positive catalyst. March 21st, 2021, TZero ATS signs agreement with Realio, a technology ecosystem for institutional grade digital assets. I'm going to take a moment to recognize what's going on with TZero to make a better understanding of why I was so tuned into this and why it became the top of my queue for deep dive research. So I do have quite the list. So let's take a moment on this. It says TZero is a leader in blockchain innovation and liquidity for digital assets. And of course, back on March 21st, 2021, they announced at that time that its subsidiary, which is TZero ATS, a FINRA member broker-dealer that operates an alternative trading system, which is ATS, has signed an agreement, of course, with Realio. Which, as we know now, is a technology ecosystem for institutional-grade digital assets. So you see some of the other ones, like we mentioned earlier, Valentis. There's another one in which gives you updates in regards to TZero, and so on, right? Well, if anything, that's the quick gist of the site, and I wanted, of course, bring you that information in regards to the site. But what I also want to show you is some of this information here, and of course, shout out to Papa X Mex, and that is some of these other particular statements that he stated here. I'll get right into some of that. I want to show you this right here. He says that he's been doing more research for a little bit, finally started buying. Security tokens will be a big thing this decade. Again, understand, their position with the SEC. I'm not a fan of the SEC, but I do like the idea that if I don't see the SEC going after Realio. But yeah, it will be big this decade. TZero, for instance, that we just mentioned, they have an app. He's stating to that we can apply. It takes a couple days, do your own research, but tokenizing real world assets is coming very soon. We see this on other platforms, right? Even with Ripple's XRP, there's a particular project, if I'm not mistaken, in Italy, right, with real estate. So this is actually a real thing, right? And of course, we outline that it's not just with LCX, it's not just with XDC. Real world digital assets, physical assets especially, the tokenization of anything physical that has significant value is big, right? And this is another one that I said to myself, like, when I saw this, Realio, TZero, Wall Street making the connections. Again, that's why I'm presenting to you guys. Might take like a little bit longer for me to like really get into the nitty gritty, but I didn't want to really miss anything. So yes, I'm making the connections. I think this is big. Let's get into some of those specific connections, okay? And if anything, I want to show you this right here. So, excuse me. It's this, actually, I should say, CoinDesk. And it states, New York Stock Exchange parent ICE takes stake in TZero in potential move towards tokenized stocks. We already saw this whole thing about, the tokenization of, real estate, basically. Well, what about the tokenization of stocks? Yes, actually at the New York Stock Exchange. That sounds big. And as we know, when it comes to crypto, New York is not exactly, all that pro crypto, right? If anything, it's like if you live there, it's going to be tough for you. So it says ICE Chief Strategy Officer David Goon will become TZero CEO and will join its board of directors. And I get it. This is February 22nd of 2022, literally about a year ago. But again, it's part of the research. These were key things that happened for this particular project. When we go further down, it says, I said an announcement back then that its investment will make it significant minority shareholder in, or make it a significant one, I should say, in TZero. The announcement didn't provide the stake size of dollar value of the transaction, but said there will be no financial impact to ICE or its capital return plans. Other investors in TZero include Overstock.com. I've actually heard of them, which had launched TZero. Medici Ventures, a blockchain-focused fund whose general partner is an entity, affiliated with Pelion Ventures Partners and others. On top of that, the Alternative Trading System, which is ATS, had been looking for a buyer or partner since at least mid-2021. Two people familiar with the plans told CoinDesk back on, I guess, June 2nd of 2021. ICE is also a major owner, a majority owner, I should say, of cryptocurrency exchange backed BAKKT, which went public via a merger with Special Purpose Acquisition Company, SPAC. I mean, some of this stuff sounds significant. I've never heard it back, to be honest. I don't even know if they're even still around. I mean, this is still kind of old news to a sense, but again, it's part of the outline. So I wanted to bring you that because, again, the key thing is what? Understanding the whole New York Stock Exchange connection. Now, to get a little bit more into this, back to TZero. TZero is big for the Realio project. So it says TZero, and again, this is from Bloomberg, back again, March 12, 2021. TZero ATS signs agreement with Realio, I don't know why I said Realio, excuse me. Realio, a technology ecosystem for institutional grade digital assets. This was on March 12, 2021, again, like I was mentioning. And it states that TZero ATS will be connected with Realio issuers for secondary trading. Gives you a little bit more of the outline from New York on March 12, 2021. TZero, a leader in blockchain innovation and liquidity for digital assets, announced back then that its subsidiary, TZero ATS, a FINRA member broker-dealer that operates an alternative trading system, ATS, of course, signed an agreement with Realio, a technology ecosystem for institutional-grade digital assets. This partnership will connect Realio's global network of real estate. Here's the key thing. And private equity issuers with an existing pipeline, listen to this, of over 300 million in assets to be tokenized. Wow. 2 TZero ATS, enabling issuers to elect to provide secondary trading for their digital securities. This is subject to TZero's ATS due diligence and applicable regulatory requirements. This press release features multimedia. View the full release if you choose to do so. TZero CEO, who is Sam Norse Elhai, I'm probably not pronouncing that right, states at that time that their goal is to increase TZero's exposure to high quality digital assets that are interested in a path to secondary trading. Today, or I should say then, their announcement is to step forward in achieving this goal. We look forward to working with Realio to connect with his pipeline issuers. I mean, of course, everybody's excited when something new comes out, right? Realio is a blockchain-enabled issuer, fund manager, and technology provider. A little bit more of a reiteration from the website, but check this out. It says specializing in sourcing and digitalizing real estate and private equity. That's the key. One of the key things. I know I keep saying this key things, but it is the key thing. Somebody says, well, what is exactly Realio? Boom, there you go. It operates an end-to-end blockchain-based SaaS, we talked about that at the beginning of the video, platform for the issuance, investment, and the lifecycle management of digital assets, with a focus on issuer-controlled and non-custodial peer-to-peer solutions that connect real-world assets with decentralized finance. Realio co-founder and CEO Derek Borean said, and I realize I'm reading a lot of this verbatim, but in reality, there's not a lot that I want to skip right here. So it says, at Realio, we are eliminating the barriers to invest in, trade, and leverage exclusive real estate. I mean, this is in itself sounds really cool. Think about what projects that are out as we speak. They're trying to accomplish this and have been talking about for over a year and still haven't done it, right? You know who they are. I don't need to mention it. Yes, I'm invested into it. You could type in the comments. I'm not going to say anything, but you guys already know who I'm talking about. All right. But yeah, other real world assets through decentralized finance. We are, as in Realio, decided to partner with TZero and connect our issuers with a market-leading venue to access secondary liquidity through a world-class regulated platform. Now, this part right here, connect our issuers with market-leading venue to access secondary liquidity through a world-class, not real world, regulated platform. Again, you got to understand the SEC connection. You also got to understand the New York Stock Exchange connection. Whether you're a fan of it or not, you also understand when they mention institutional money, I guess you could say, you could clearly see it's there. And again, if you're still with me, we will get into some of that as well. And to me, that's like some of the icing on the cake. But anyway, if you're this far into it, we have more. TZero is a technology firm with the goal of democratizing access to private capital markets. TZero is a subsidiary of Medici Ventures, the blockchain-focused, wholly owned subsidiary of Overstock.com, Inc. I didn't even know that until recently. And of course, their NASDAQ ticker symbol is OSTK. So you already, we're having a firm understanding of, is like, Papa X basically mentioned, Papa X Mex, excuse me, of connecting the dots. I mean, if you've been following us, you're kind of connecting as we speak, right? Some of this is very, very bullish to see. And again, I'm not a fan of the SEC, but I mean, the connections that we have here, right? If anything, when you hear these terms of, institutional money, this whole thing of understanding that Medici Ventures, right? Blockchain focus, wholly owned subsidiary of who? Overstock.com. And they have what? That particular ticker symbol with the NASDAQ. Pretty bullish. All right. They have an investor notice. Of course, it's more like doing your own research, et cetera, right? No solicitation, blah, blah, blah. There is more in regards to this TZero. I will read this for a brief moment. it states that TZero and its broker-dealer subsidiaries innovative liquidity platform for private companies and assets. They offer institutional-grade solutions for issuers looking to digitize their capital, right? Kind of makes sense that you would have somebody like TZero partner up with, with Rio, right? All right, so of course there's a little more information. Talks about, it kind of reiterates what we mentioned with Realio and so on. But let's take you to the next part of our particular outline, and it's this right here. And it don't even take that long. If anything, I'll probably hit a like. This happened 10 months ago. TZero rings the opening bell. Where? Yeah, at the New York Stock Exchange. Now, they don't really talk or anything, but just sit back, relax, watch this. This in itself is very, very bullish. And come on, think about this for a second, even before we play it. Everything that we outlined so far, and we're not even done, right? This was April 13th, 2022, if I'm not mistaken. What says top right corner? When we connect the whole dots and so on, I just say to myself, this is a micro cap. We saw on that particular list that, I guess you could say the biggest centralized exchange was OKX. I'll tell you flat out, as time progresses, we get more of, as the saying goes, regulatory clarity, because let's face it, I think that is probably the thing that's holding, the widespread adoption of this, if you will. These particular terms, you see it with, the XRP community quite often. We got to get regulatory clarity, institutional money coming in. This is already connected to institutional money, right? So we get that clarity. I'm telling you flat out, this is one that tells me flat out that this could be huge. When people talk about microcaps, right, there's a lot of microcaps you could get burned on, right? Don't get me wrong. But there's also ones in which could really fly under the radar. Is this one? Again, do more of your own research, but I feel as though it could be. This is at a market cap, and we'll double check this, is in the $500,000 range. You get yourself regulatory clarity, then the institutional money will come in. You already have access to that institutional money. Come on. The New York Stock Exchange, what they're connected to, and so on here, as you can see, TZero and so on. Oh my goodness. You want to talk about something that could go instantly parabolic? I'm telling you flat out, it's not financial advice, but I myself connect the dots here. And I'm looking at this like we get another centralized exchange on board after or even before, but especially, let's face it, after we get that regulatory clarity. This is, I'm not the type of guy to hype you guys up much at all, really. I think for the most part, I think people know that. Provide research or something. Yeah, I talk about, certain ones like quant, and like, I truly believe that by 2030, that could be anywhere from like 100,000 to like 1 million. I mean, I feel as though that could be like the first $1 million coin. I talk, crazy stuff like that. Some people criticize me. They say it's, you shouldn't do that. It's hype. Okay, that's just my opinion. As a content creator, we're always under threat of freedom of thought, right? But I'm telling you flat out, this project right here, at 500,000 some odd dollars, market cap. Oh my gosh, get a centralized exchange. I don't kind of feel like I'm going a little bit in a circle here, but yes, get a few exchanges more, regulatory clarity, everything we just mentioned, and it's going to be big. All right, this is just a minute or so. I don't know if I'll play the whole thing, but just watch this. This is crazy.
Live from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, it's April 13th, 2022. Please welcome TZero in celebration of its leadership in digital innovation with the strategic funding round led by ICE and recent appointment of longtime ICE executive David Goon as its new Chief Executive Officer. To honor the occasion, they are ringing the opening bell of the New York Stock Exchange.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe some people don't think that's a big deal. But you know what? In reality, yeah, it is a big deal. Because you see what they're connected with. All right, I want to show you guys a little bit more in regards to some of this. Now, this comes from the TZero site. It says, digitize your investors. Digital securities are conventional securities with a blockchain technology overlay. Again, some of the education, right? You may already know this, some of you don't. But that doesn't matter. The whole point is understanding this. So, yes, it enhances the issuer and investor experience through customization and transparency. Tokenized assets transform the capital formation process by automating and reducing the costly compliance requirements through a transparent and immutable ledger. At TZero, digital securities have several advantages over traditional securities, all while operating in a regulated environment. Why? Well, think about where they're located. Think about some of the connections. That simply makes sense. If you go here, it says structure your security to fit your specified needs. TZero empowers companies to do what? Design digital securities, include non-fungible tokens, NFTs. I should say including, tailored to their individual goals. The what? That not just the tokenization of what you see here, but using NFTs and providing some form of utility. These are not just a bunch of JPEGs, if you will, right? So it states, select type of class, equity, debt, fund, real estate, art, you name it. It's quite a bit of a category there, right? Determine investor jurisdiction. Is it just going to be US based? Where's it going to be? Regulation and trading restrictions. I mean, they're all about being compliant, right? And, you know, with all the doom and gloom that's been happening and so on, if this is, you know, a big worry for you, well, I guess you could say, look at who they're tied into. I don't see this being one that's going to be, you know, Gensler and the SEC going after. But, you know, let's face it, could be wrong. I've seen crazier things. But for some people, maybe they feel a little bit more comfortable about that. It says, choose a blockchain token standard, ETH, Algorand, Tezos, and others. Enable smart contract features. So, I mean, they got the whole package here. KYC. They can even create and distribute assets, mint tokens, you name it. Establish post-issuance management, dividends, coupons, trading restrictions. Set up marketplace, enable secondary trading. You know, you can design your own asset. If that was like a project you're looking to do, right? You know, basically, I guess you could say start your own crypto project, right? And it gives a whole particular breakdown about all this and so on, which is really cool. You know, to effortlessly tokenize your securities in a regulatory compliant manner. Again, key thing, regulatory compliant manner. Understand these particular connections to everything in New York, the stock exchange, and of course, yeah, even the SEC. So it says tokenization is a process that utilizes innovative technology to add digital element to a security. This can be in the form of immutable ownership records visible on a blockchain, which is permissible today, or by creating a security, solely issued on a blockchain with built-in rules known as smart contracts that governs all aspects of the blockchain. Of course, there's many benefits like increased transparency, streamlined back office processes, greater customization, etc., etc. How about this? Instant settlement. Settlement of securities is near instant, right? And also understanding some of these particular connections. Stellar, right? So, you know, with Stellar XLM, right, that would make sense to have near instant settlement. Some of these particular connections simply make sense. And then at the end of the day, after you've done all this, right, with their version of KYC and so on, tokenize your asset. Yeah, how cool is that? You want to start a project, you want it tied in some of these specific things, you could even try it out if you have the money, of course, and so on. But the key thing for me is some of the things that we mentioned. The tokenization of real estate, digitizing your investors. I mean, it's just a whole grocery list of really, in my opinion, you know, there's a lot of bullish sentiment here, right? One last area before we kick it back to some of the things I want to outline from CMC just a little bit more. And that is this right here. And shout out to this particular person who is Aegis Bastion. And it's in regards to Algorand and the Rio ecosystem. I just like calling it Rio because it's a lot easier to pronounce that way. It's ASA explanations. Of course, there's an intro into this, but I like this particular part where it talks about specifically what Realio is. It's more of a reiteration, in regards to Realio. Sorry, still fighting allergies. And on top of that, understanding the tokens, right? And the role of the specific tokens and the main value. The main value of specifically the exchange and so on. You can also stake Realio. Those are the key areas. There's, of course, other ones. If you want to watch this and the whole entire thing, you're more than welcome to do so. It's more of like, the regulatory framework and so on. But the main areas is what I'm going to highlight and fast forward to right here. So I'm just going to get into that in a brief moment. Just double check on my settings. So here we go. I'm just going to blow this up for you guys, and then if anything, we'll come back in just a brief moment. And if anything, I'm going to full screen this to provide it to you guys. So here we go. Let me just go ahead and do that. And we'll be back in just a moment. Here we go.
I'm going to go in and basically I've done some research here. We're going to go through the white papers in a little bit more detail. So what is Realio? First of all, this is a project on Algorand, and it involves digital issuance of investment in P2P trading platforms, leveraging blockchain technology in order to unlock value and movement within the private equity landscape. The Realio platform provides an easy-to-use, customized experience that allows for frictionless and socially engaged private marketplaces. They have a stated goal to capture the private investment marketplace with disruptive technology, given this market's high friction and lack of transparency, illiquidity, and complicated regulatory environment. And in their white papers, they have a target of, this entire sector is approximately a $7 trillion sector when we consider real estate. Realio ASAs. Now here is the point of this video. There are 3 different flavors, if you will, of Realio that you can get. I do just want to say too, Realio is primarily on Algorand. However, it is on other blockchains as well too, and you can also find it on Uniswap. But when you are going through and looking basically through this, you'll see the RIO token. You can see the ASA there. You will see the RUSD token and the Realio network token, which is RST. So what are the differences of these? Some of these pools might be coming to a close, or if we're looking to reallocate funds because maybe we're not getting the yields we're looking for. Hopefully this video will clear up exactly the intended uses of these tokens. So the roles of these tokens. Now these capture, these are the value capture in the Realio ecospace happens through tokenizing assets and bringing them onto the platform. So asset issuers pay fees in RIO, which is the network layer of that, and node operators are rewarded in RIO for validating transactions. Market makers adding liquidity to the ecosystem also rewarded in RIO. This is all information that you can take from page 25 of the white papers. The main value exchange happens between investors and asset issuers owners, and this has to deal with how the company is actually structured and how they're doing what they're saying that they're doing. A number of other actors must do their part to maintain a healthy ecosystem. By using a native currency, we enable the value creation of the whole network to be represented by a single programmable currency. Users can stake RIO to become traders on Realio X. Realio X is Realio's DEX, if you will. This is something that you can go to their website, you can create an account, you can go through the Know Your Customer authentication process. You can burn RIO to become market makers or stake their RIO with a member organization of the Realio network to earn block rewards. Added value in the ecosystem flows from issuers who tokenize assets on the platform. At the same time, market makers decrease total token supply and increase liquidity in the ecosystem. From page 25. The Realio Network LTD RST token. This is the first variety. This is issued as the security token and represents actual ownership of the Realio ecosystem. The Realio security token, the RST, represents an investment into the platform and the ecosystem and offers revenue stream in the form of profit share. So holders of over 10,000 RST can also run nodes on the Realio network and validate transactions while earning block rewards and additional revenues from issuance paid out in RIO. So very important to note, the security versus the network rewards, or the actual operating component of this. The RST token fund will own 100% of the Realio technology platform and network and have a maximum supply of 50 million RST tokens. Half of those, or approximately 25 million RST, will be issued to the entity that provided all of the equity funding towards the development of the platform to date, which is controlled by the founder. So it is Tokenomics 50% founder owned, and 4.75 million RST allocated to the individual team members and advisors. The remaining 20 million tokens are sold out multiple rounds via private offerings, including bonus rounds.
All right, so I actually want to give you a little bit more of that information instead of just stopping it where I originally was planning to do so. I want to bring it back to the CMC site, and if anything, I'm just going to double check my settings. But the key takeaway here is basically, understand that it's on multiple blockchains. I guess originally they started off on Ethereum, like you mentioned, like you heard that particular gentleman mention, that it's actually on Algorand. So it's not just Ethereum. There's multiple ones and so on, which is cool. You want to see that, right? This is actually now up to 10 cents. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, it basically was slightly under, but that's beyond the point. On top of that, here's the thing I want to also mention: is currently on 6,490 watch list. And if you're wondering about the supply, I don't know if he talked about that just briefly. I know he got into some of the nitty gritty, as I would say. There's only 9% of this in the circulating supply, but the good news is what? The good news is there's only 75 million of these, and that's one of the key things, right? So it's not like, this is like some of the other projects out there, right, where you have literally billions, if not trillions, of a total supply, right, or max supply. So I just definitely wanted to point that out as well. I'm not sweating that. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity with this, with all the particular connections this has. If you're wondering about like what kind of community it has, I will pull that up real quick. So, currently speaking, there's only about 11,200 followers. But when we get further into this, they do post updates, and if anything, they do try to keep it active for us and so on. So it says they're on a mission to redefine the future of private equity. On top of that, it states that I guess apparently they're talking to, some of these other particular companies like with Forbes and so on, to understand the trends transforming real estate. I should say just kind of tagging it and so on. But, they have an active community for the most part. I mean, it's a smaller community, but again, this is a micro cap, right? You can join their particular Discord if that's your thing. But check this out. I wanted to mention this real quick, just kind of like a little brief update other than just having a full deep dive, right? So it states, please help and report and block this fake Realio account. But, they try to let people know of like some of the scams out there and so on, which is good. You want to see them basically do that. Talk about the impersonators and so on. Actually, here's the one I wanted to bring to you guys real quick, and it says, do you know all the pieces of a Realio ecosystem? And if anything, I'm going to bring that up. This actually doesn't really have any important sound. I'm just going to pause it right there. It mentions, for instance, the Realio wallet, the investment portal, Realio network, exchange listings, integration. And if anything, I mean, they just want to keep their, I guess you could say, their community active. People do engage. I mean, I guess that's not really that big of an update. There's this one back on the 21st, push harder than yesterday if you want a different tomorrow. And kind of gives you a tech update. It says working on updating Realio JS bindings to allow developers easily to build on the Realio network. Completed Realio wallet, kind of like some of the things we mentioned, nearing completion of network core code, beginning testing and validation. So, I mean, it's, this has been around for like at least a couple years, if not more. Again, understand, it's a micro cap, right? And if anything, one last thing I want to bring to your attention before we wrap things up is this right here on the overview. And you do see that they originally started all the way back since 2020. So, I mean, this right here, some people look at it like, oh man, it looks like a pump and then a dump, whatever you want to call it. But you do see that you saw price action as high as $4.85. And then even in 2021, this was well over what? Well over $1, right? Significantly higher than where it's right now. And let's face it, 11/11/2021, last I checked, right? Bitcoin, all-time highs, Ethereum, all-time highs. And, this was kind of like right around about $1.40-ish, if you will. Of course, as we entered into 2022, just like the rest of the market, everything kind of tanked and so on. But I'm looking at this from the perspective of what? I'm looking at it from the perspective of what they're connected to, right? Some big players, New York Stock Exchange, the tokenization of, real estate, that TZero connection, that's huge because like what you just saw, I mean, them ringing that opening bell, like with anything, some of the, micro caps, I guess you could say, is a lot more of a higher, there's a lot more risk involved. Again, like I mentioned, it's not financial advice, but again, we get some of that regulatory clarity. And if anything, geez, I just kind of came out of the frame for a second, didn't I? Give me just a second. If we get some of that regulatory clarity, I mean, this is, you've seen so many times, there's ones that just kind of like pop off out of nowhere. I think there's just something to be said with this, and I'm very excited about it. So it is one that I'm not personally into yet. I am going to basically wait for just a slight pullback once this gets like maybe around consistently under that 10 cents. So literally here soon, I'm probably watching it as like a hawk. I'm looking to make a position, and I was like, I got this whole grocery list of ones to take deep dives into. This went to the top of that particular list. So shout out again to Papa X Mex, who presented this to me. And of course, I took more of like my deeper dive into, as you will, connecting the dots. Let me know what you guys think in the comments in regards to this specific project. Do you feel like there's a lot of potential here, or you feel like it's just too high of a risk? Or if anything, just simply let me know some of your questions, concerns, and so on. And even on our live show, which is every day at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. If you happen to be there, want to join us, you could definitely ask questions, comments, and so on. Make sure you do so. Actually, I'm going to take a brief moment. I want to show you guys just one more thing. And that is in regards to the CTN site. If you happen to have not seen it, I'll put it back into the frame. So here it is. And I want to show this to you guys just real quick. This is our brand new site. And we're very, very proud about it and so on. So if anything, I might actually just full screen a little bit more. Yeah, I'm going to do that real quick. There we go. So this is our particular website. It is new, but I want to point out that you can actually watch our live show from here. You can watch some of our YouTube videos from here and so on. But here's the thing. Let's say you're not a big fan of social media, right? Like you're not a fan of using Twitter or whatever the case be. You can go here. It doesn't cost you any money at all. It's absolutely free. After you register and so on, let's say you wanted to send like a direct message to myself or another community member or even people from the comments and so on. All you have to do is go to where it says members after you register with your email. It's really easy. And you can go over here. And for instance, let's say you want to send a message to like Miguel. All right, you just click on his name. You can click message. And then boom, you can just type a message to him. Or me or whoever you want to do. And of course you can make profiles. On top of that, let's say for instance you want to see our creators section. We have other content creators that are part of the CTN network section, right? Crypto content creators. There's 2-Bit Crypto, Bleeze, Chaka. I'm sure a lot of you guys know about Classic Crypto. Of course there's us. Maria Anderson, Crypto Smith, which is Sean. He's with me on Mondays. He's also with me on Wednesdays for a roundtable. Of course, some other familiar faces, Daniel Gate and Waddy, right? By the way, Crypto Smith has a show on Saturday over at The Crypto Smith, which is at, I believe it's 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Yes, that's what it is. And even Michael Montclair, he's not a crypto content creator, but he's part of our community. He has a great voice. Highly recommend you checking him out. But it's just this nice thing that we have. And if anything, it's not us trying to like, hey, do this if you like us as a cool favor. We're trying to actually make this as like a one-stop shop, if you will, for all things crypto. So you can go over to where it says community. I'll just pull that up for a second. And like, for instance, I mean, this is all real new. I mean, here's some of the guidelines and so on. But I mean, I'll go over here, for instance, there's news that was dropped today earlier about the app, which is cool. CTN Network app, which is on Wix. Yeah, keep in mind, this is all brand new, so we're still getting, things worked out. Larry posted about this. And if anything, it, like he mentions, it is great news. But the point is, like, we have a new section, it's kind of like a forums, and you can go there and you could post and so on. So check it out, guys. ctnnetwork.net. And again, there's other particular areas. How about this? I'll show you one more in regards to CTN Studios. Here it is real quick. Like the show, basically like the show from yesterday. There's me, there's Sean. It has a price chart for quants, some other ones. So really cool stuff. Check it out and give us some feedback. We would love to hear from you. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap things up. Let me come back into the frame just here for a brief moment. I want to basically thank you guys again for tuning in on this particular deep dive in regards to Realio, aka Rio. And like, comment, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Have a blessed day. We will see you on the next one.